Welcome to Thriving Thursday. With the new year coming up, it's time to plan what our platform's going to look like for next year. And a bonus here is actually this month, we're going to talk about what are the steps, because there really are steps that need to happen to build your foundation in a very solid way. What happens with most entrepreneurs is that they start with one or two foundational tools and then they jump into monetization, or they jump into three or four or five steps ahead, and it all falls apart. And the reason for that is there are some very basic steps that need to happen in order for us to have a solid foundation. So today we're going to talk about those foundational tools. So why do you need a foundation? Well, because building your audience on a solid foundation means that they come back again and again and again. So there are methods to keeping them coming back, but you have to go out and get them. And first, before you even get them, you have to identify who they are and where they're at so that you can speak to them in the right way and so you can find them. So phase one is really about niche building and branding and your website, content creation, and social media. Those are the foundational tools that you need to have set up to really build this in a killer way. What happens when you don't? Well, a couple things. First of all, you don't have a clear message, and that's a problem because the more muddled your message is, the more people walk away. They have to be able to identify very quickly what it is you do, how you do it, and who you are. Another thing that happens is your branding is all over the place. Your message is part of your branding. And, a lot of people think that branding is just about, I have a logo, I have my headshot. It's really about much more than that. It is the feeling people get when they come to you and when they see your marketing materials. So the branding is very important, and that clear message is a big part of that branding. Your website isn't visited. For a lot of us these days, a website can be sort of an afterthought. I mean, I know myself, I have two websites, but I also run a lot of what I do off of landing pages. So you may not have to have an entire site crafted, but if you have things that you offer, you at least need those landing pages. And your social media doesn't connect. I hear this day in and day out. Oh, I'm posting over on LinkedIn, but nobody connects with me. I'm posting on Facebook. I have a community, but nobody ever talks. All of this is part of setting up those foundational tools so this happens. When you don't do this, you may be able to limp along for 30 days, maybe 60 days, but what will happen in the end long term, which we should all be thinking long term, is that your visibility and your revenue crumble. So why do you go there? Why do people even do this? Why do they put this all together and skip all these steps? Most of it's in instant gratification. We want validation, we want revenue, and we want it all now. And it's really not realistic. So step one, the niche building. This is your audience and messaging clarity. And this, my friends, is an entrepreneur deal breaker. If your messaging is not clear, concise, and hitting the exact right audience, you're through. And this is where so many people struggle. They go out and they do the everybody is my audience thing. Everybody is not your audience. I'll give you an example. When I first started my business back in 2008, I thought writers, like all writers need me, right? I'm a publishing company. The truth was that most writers are starving artists. What I really needed, and I found out within the first year, almost accidentally, was that I needed entrepreneurs who wanted to write books. They were people with money. They were people with purpose. They were people who had it going on. And that's what I really needed. Number two is branding. Branding yourself. Who are you? What do you stand for? You need to go through some exercises. How do you want people to feel when they see your logo, your company, your site, when you talk about it? You have to remember, as a small business person, you're probably branding yourself. So this is very, very important. What are the colors that represent you? I was just in an event where we talked about branding colors, and a very good friend of mine who is a very well-known branding expert talked to some people at the table about their colors. And 3 out of 4 people were using the wrong colors for what they were trying to represent. Do some background on what the feel is for certain colors. You may be a cuddly, really great guy that people know for your sense of humor, but if you're using a Ferrari and red, probably not representing what you really stand for. Your website needs to be branded and targeted at your niche audience. This is where the hub of your audience has conversion. Now, like I said a little bit earlier, lead pages, things like that, you can integrate them into your website. I think the only part of my website that's really my website, truly on my website, is my very first page and probably my media page. Other than that, they're pages inserted from lead pages or ClickFunnels. So, but this is the hub of your conversion. And what that means is that not only is it branded, is it targeted, but the languaging, the copywriting. So many of us skip professional copywriting. It all has to speak directly to the audience. Content creation. What do you feed your audience? I talk to entrepreneurs every day who tell me, I don't have time to make content. I just share everybody else's. Well, the reality is the content is where you create value. And value is what people are looking for in the marketplace. Value is what builds trust. So you have to be able to create content and feed it on a consistent basis that's valuable, it's friendly, and it's easily consumable. Because remember, none of us have attention spans anymore since the creation of the internet. And lastly, social media. It has to be engaging. And what it also has to be is response-driven, which means you have to have questions. You have to be able to transition people from social media into your list. There have been some huge social media changes lately that have created instances where people have lost their audience. If you have that audience inside of your email list, you haven't lost them. You have the ability to contact them at any time. So as usual, if you're not fully building your funnel, you're losing out and leaking on clients and revenue. See you next Thursday.